In today's video, we are going to journey through time, explore the fascinating history of life expectancy, and unravel the incredible leaps in longevity we have made even without sipping from the mythical fountain of youth. Intrigued yet? Well, buckle up and stay tuned to the end because we are going to dive deep into the cells of our bodies and answer the questions: why do we age? What's happening in ourselves as we grow older? How does DNA play a role in our longevity? So many questions, so little time. So let's go on. Why we age. 1. Live fast but don't die young. From the ancient times to the pre-industrial era, people didn't have it easy when it came to life expectancy. Can you believe that global average life expectancy at birth was just around 30 to 35 years? But hold on, that doesn't mean everyone died at such a young age. You see, the high infant mortality rate back then significantly impacted the average. But here's the mind-blowing part. Around 2012, the global average life expectancy had skyrocketed to 71 years. And this is an incredible increase without any fancy age-extending elixir or genetic engineering. Now, let's take a closer look at Mozambique, one of the poorest countries in the world today. In 1960, the life expectancy at birth of a Mozambican was only 39 years. But guess what? Today, it's a little over 60. This is a significant leap forward. So how did all this happen? Well, for one, we took care of child mortality. At some point in the past, 1 in 4 children didn't make it to their second birthday, and half didn't live to see puberty. But then, things began to change. We introduced antiseptics, built effective sewage system, ensured clean running water, and embraced vaccination, among other life-saving measures. Can you believe that something as simple as hand washing was once a controversial piece of advice? Time for a little short story. In the 1840s, a particular kind of fever was plaguing women in the maternity ward in Europe, leaving many of them dead shortly after birth. A Hungarian physician, Ignaz, investigated the problem, noticing that maternity wards managed by doctors and medical students had a higher mortality rate than those managed by midwives. After ruling out many other factors, he noticed that doctors and medical students' reports to the maternity ward after autopsy, while midwives had no such obligations beforehand. He hypothesized cadaverous particles being transferred from cadavers to new mothers. Recall that the germ theory of disease was yet to be fully developed at the time. So, a mandatory hand-washing regimen was instituted, and surprisingly, the death rate plummeted, basically reversing the death. Despite the evidence and data right in front of their eyes, Ignaz's theory was met with resistance by the medical community at the time. It took the work of pioneers like Joseph Lister and Louis Pasteur to finally validate the importance of hand sanitation and hygiene practices. Can you imagine it took over a century for hand washing to become universally accepted? And let's not forget the tremendous impact of vaccination. It saved countless lives. When we look back, we realize that most deaths in the pre-industrial era weren't due to aging itself, but rather the lack of knowledge about combating pathogens. We were unknowingly plagued by invincible biological agents, but today, now that we have some handle over that, we are growing enough to die of age-related diseases, that is aging. Now that we have explored the fascinating history of life expectancy, let's dive into some molecular biology and get ready for a crash course. 2. A crash course in molecular biology. Have you ever wondered why we age? I mean, the biology of aging. One of the theory is championed by a biologist called David Sinclair is the information theory of aging. According to this theory, our bodies age due to the accumulation of genomic instability. And it happens like this. As we grow older, our DNA, the building blocks of our genetic material, starts to break. This leads to genomic instability, which in turn disrupts the epigenome. And how does this happen? To better understand this, let's clarify some buzzwords. If you want to spell it out, DNA is deoxyribonucleic acid. It is a molecule that contains our genetic code and is the building block of our genetic material. Next, G. It is just a chunk of DNA that codes for a protein. A protein is a biological factor that does work in your cell. We also have histones, which are types of proteins that package the DNA in the chromosome and make it fit into a tiny, super tiny cell. On the other hand, the genome is the totality of the DNA in a cell, while the epigenome are chemical tags that map the genome and histones, literally dictating what gene is to be expressed, that is, expression into a protein or not. The genetic material in all the cells in our body are identical. So what differentiates your liver from your kidney is the differential expressions of genes, which are dictated by these chemical tags, the epigenome. Think of it this way. The genome is like your computer, and the epigenome is the software that controls it. 3. Connecting the dots. When DNA breaks, the epigenome, responsible for tagging specific locations of the DNA and histones, is affected. This prompts an unwinding process to allow for DNA repair. Additionally, epigenetic factors are recruited to the damaged areas for repair operations. With so many fires to put out in our cells, two crucial aspects are negatively impacted: DNA packaging and gene regulation. DNA packaging relies on the chemical tags to coordinate the systematic organization of DNA within a cell, while gene regulation determines which genes are expressed and which genes are not. As genomic and epigenomic instability continues to accumulate over time, our cells start losing their identity. This compromised genetic expression leads to chaos, with genes that are supposed to be switched off turning on, and vice versa. Just imagine kidney cells behaving like part brain cell, part skin cell. Trust me, you don't want your organs playing musical chairs. Ultimately, this gradual accumulation of DNA breaks due to various factors like irregular copying errors, radiation, and exposure to harmful chemicals leads to diseases and eventually death.